Hello, welcome to IT Security Labs. By the end of today's video, I'm going to show you how to create this graph in Grafana where we are monitoring Active Directory accounts. As you can see, we can see disabled accounts, locked out accounts, expired accounts, and the password reset timelines here on your timeline. I'll also show you how to create this graph right here where we can monitor our domain controller's system metrics. Alright, so if you're brand new, we are building an Infosec lab where we are learning some skills that are required to become better at cybersecurity in any role that we have. And in this case, we're focusing more on system administration and some networking. And during that process, we're doing a lot of network security monitoring. So today's goal is to make sure that we monitor our Active Directory environment that we created last time in our previous video. This is where we ended up last time. We had a domain controller, we created some users, and we installed Windows AD environment. So this is the environment that we're going to be monitoring. We're going to start by installing Ubuntu 20.04, and then we install the TIG stack, that's Telegraph, InfluxDB, and Grafana for monitoring. That's what's going to show us those graphs that we saw earlier. Then we'll configure Telegraph in Windows Domain Controller, and during this time I'll share with you the script that I have. I'll give you a link to the GitHub page that is monitoring the statistics from our domain controller to Grafana. Then we'll create the graphs. I'll show you the steps that I took to actually create the graphs, and maybe you can create even better graphs than what you're looking at in this series. So why even bother to monitor Active Directory? Well, the truth is we don't want this guy right here to surprise us. Active Directory contains a lot of sensitive information. It is the core of any business. If you're running Active Directory, that's where all your user accounts and the privileged accounts live. You do not want an attacker to surprise you by compromising your environment, creating backdoors, that is maybe creating more accounts in your system without you even knowing. As an administrator, whether you're a security person or not, if you're responsible for Active Directory, you need to know the accounts that are in there. We need to know how many privileged accounts you have, like the domain admin's accounts. You need to have a process that monitors those accounts. If they're created, there has to be an approval process on creating new privileged accounts, and everyone has to know what those accounts are used for. So if someone, whether an admin or not, creates an account that is not going through the normal procedure, you need to know why that is happening. At the same time, you also need to know if there's a lot of password resets. If you have hundreds and hundreds of accounts that are just getting logged out because someone is maybe trying to brute force into them, or if someone is just resetting passwords all of a sudden in your environment, you need to know. That's why this video is going to be very important for you, because we're going to set up a monitoring system from step by step by starting by implementing Ubuntu. All right, let's start by signing into our ESXi, and here we're going to install our Ubuntu machine, and this machine is going to be hosting all these graphs here. That's where we're installing Telegraph, InfluxDB, and Grafana. So I already have it here, but I'll show you step by step so that you can replicate it yourself. So we create a new virtual machine. If you're pretty much used to installing machines in VMware, you might skip this part here, might be fast forward. I'm creating a second Grafana here, and this is going to be in Linux, Ubuntu 64. This is going to be Ubuntu 64-bit, and then my data store, I only have one. And then here, this machine is going to be doing quite some work, so let me give it 4 gigs. Maybe 2 CPU and 4 gigs here. Then I'll give it, should we say, maybe 160. Yeah. Then I don't want a USB controller. It's just a waste of. I want it to connect it to my VM network. And right here, I want it to be connected to my data store ISO. And I have Ubuntu 20. This is the Ubuntu server that we downloaded last time. Okay, you can download it on ubuntu.com. Then next. So this is just the installation of Ubuntu at this point. So Grafana 02. Let's start the machine. And this is going to go through the normal Ubuntu installation. The only choice that I choose here is to make sure that SSH is enabled. Otherwise, it's the defaults for installing Ubuntu. So I might skip forward here. All right, so while this is happening here, just wanted to remind you that I really appreciate if you can like and subscribe to my channel. It means a lot to me when you do. This is free stuff, and the only way that I feel like I'm being supported by you is if you subscribe and like my videos. That's just the feedback that you give me to know that I'm not spending the next hour making these videos for nothing really. All right, here I'm choosing English because that's what we have. And I'm saying no, we don't want to update right now, and done here. As you can see, my IP address is now from DHCP and it's 192.168.38.29. It's done. No proxy for me. That's my mirror, yes. And right here, I'm saying, yeah, let's use the entire disk. And done. That looks good. Done. Yes, I want to continue. The username is actually not the password. So here is where I said I just install OpenSSH by clicking the space bar, and done. If you wanted, you can install Docker. I might actually use this one for Docker, so I'm going to install Docker, but you don't have to. Prometheus for monitoring system series data. You can actually install Prometheus here if you want it. I'm not going to do that for now, but Prometheus is really good. So this is going to install the system. That's pretty much it. Let's give this some time to install, and then when it's done, we'll come back. So right now this machine is installing updates. You can cancel this and proceed and do this later, or you can do this now. It's up to you. For me, I'm just going to let it finish. All right, so once it's done with the updates, as you can see here, I can reboot. All right, so now that my machine is up and rebooted, the IP address is 192.168.38.29. So from a terminal, I'll just SSH to 192 to this user and 192.168.38.29 and the password. We're in. So sudo su. All right, so I'm going to be using these instructions right here to install Telegraph, InfluxDB, and Grafana. So I'm going to link to these instructions here, but this is pretty much what I'm following. So if you don't mind following me, I'll do my upgrade. I'm just following the instructions as they are. So if you don't want to watch this, I understand, you can just go and do this from the instructions. This is just going to make sure that my system is up to date and everything is working. I already applied updates, so I'm not expecting this to take too long. And the upgrade is going to also make sure that I have the latest and greatest in this series here. Up to upgrade. And yes. Let's do it one more time. Type yes. There is my upgrade. So you want to make sure that your system is to the latest and greatest, so you don't have to deal with the upgrades and everything else. And once that is done, we need to install Telegraph on our Ubuntu. I'm going to use the option to install Telegraph from the repos, from Influx data repos. And Telegraph is what we use for monitoring systems, for shipping the data. So in this case, we will be monitoring our Grafana server by itself. So let's install Telegraph there as soon as this is done. So now that the repos are updated, let's install, let's update first. Make sure that we have the latest one. Then we run apt install. Grafana. Yes. So this is super simple. I'm not doing anything special here. This is not even my write-up. It's somebody's. Just being smart and not reinventing the wheel here. So next we're going to enable reload the daemon and enable Grafana. Then we check. Right, so Grafana is done installing. Now we can just reload the daemon, then enable the server, make sure that it runs, and we can just make sure that we can check the status to see if it's running. I hope you don't feel dizzy with me switching screens like this. As you can see, Grafana is running, and Grafana runs on port 5601. So let's quit that. Next, we are going to make sure that we configure this setup so that all the three components talk to each other. Remember, Telegraph is going to send data to InfluxDB, which is going then to feed that data to Grafana for visualization. So first, let's create our Influx database. And this database does not have any authentication right now. In a production environment, you want to make sure that you have authentication. So now that we're in there, we can just say create database Telegraph. This is the database that all your systems might be connecting to. You can create multiple databases here. Let's use that my password that they have over there. That seems to be that, but you need to change the password to something. Right now we're just going to use my password. That is the way it is. Save some time. Then if we show some databases, we should see Telegraph listed there and all the users. That's about it. And there it is. So now the last part of the instruction says we can try to sign in with my password. I'm not going to do this part because I know it works. So there is no need. But this is the password that we set up. Let's keep this one in mind. Make sure that it works. But let's go ahead and exit and move the configuration file for Telegraph. We're just following everything that is in there. This is going to give us the metrics for our Grafana instance. And this is not monitoring everything. It's just going to monitor a few things here. And you don't need to do this for Active Directory, but I think it's good for you to monitor the Grafana server that you're running on as well. Then we need to configure telegraph.conf. And right here, we're just going to put this actually. Yeah, so let's well with Vim. And let's search for output. So our output is right here. The easiest way to make sure that this you don't mess with anything here, you can go ahead and uncomment things in here, or you can come right here. We already have our output set up for us. You don't want to repeat outputs.influxdb, just that part. It's already here. Then let's fix the syntax in here, make sure that everything is good. So this is going to monitor the server that we installed Grafana on, the metrics that we specify so that we can see the performance of our Grafana server. That's all this is doing. So that's the output. The input is already configured. Let's save this. Now I can actually start doing some work. But before we do that, let's just check, make sure that we have the same output as they did here. Was already following those instructions, right? Yep, we do. That's exactly what they have out there. All right, so let's restart Telegraph and check the status. So my Telegraph is running and it should be connected. All right, so I got a Grafana, InfluxDB, and Telegraph. They're all working right now. If I did this, it should give me the results. Make sure that my stats are working. This is a good way for telling that our TIG instance is working. As you can see, all these statistics are being sent there. So let's clear that. So right here, at this moment, you can go ahead and allow your port 3000 and add the data source. So let's allow port 3000 because That's where we'll listen for Grafana. And then let's go to our Grafana. 192.168.38, and this is 29. We're listening on port 3000. So you also want to spend some time configuring this further. You want to make sure that this is behind an Nginx server with authentication. That's the best way. But for now, this is admin, and welcome to Grafana. So we reset our password. You can skip that, but just put your own password here. So now it's saying, okay, go to manage. We don't have a dashboard yet, but we have some statistics coming. So let's import a dashboard. And if we go to our instructions one more time, there's a sample dashboard that we can use. Let's use this one. If you just copy to clipboard ID, you'll get this dashboard that they already have here. And I'm going to do that. Copy the ID to clipboard, and it's 955, then we can load it. Telegraph system metrics. It was created by this person in 2018, so since we're in a newer version of Grafana, this might be different. Oh, I need to create my database first. Okay, so if we go to here, data sources, add data source. Our database is our data source is in InfluxDB, so let's add that. And we're going to copy that localhost 8086. All right. Server access authentication is going to be, the database is called Telegraph. The user is called Telegraph. Password, we created our password in here. So this is the password that we used. You want to use your own password here. Just showing you what we have. So we'll go back here and save and test. When you do a save and test, you want to see that the data source is working. All right, so now that the data source is working, let's go back to our Grafana Telegraph system matrix 59. So let's copy this one again, 5955. Come back here and do an add import 5955 load, and our database now is InfluxDB import. All right, as you can see, the statistics just populate right away. These are the metrics for the Grafana server. As you can see, it started right now when we just got done setting it up. So you can see the CPU usage and everything. And congratulations, your Grafana instance works. It accepts data. Now here is the fun part. This is just Linux Ubuntu metrics. We want our Active Directory data, just like what I had right here. This is the one that I set up earlier on 28. We want Active Directory data that shows us accounts. So two things that we need to do. We need to install Telegraph, which is the one that ships the data to Grafana on our Windows machine. Then we also need to make sure that once we install Telegraph there, we configure Telegraph with my Python script, with my PowerShell script that is going to actually grab that data. There's more work that needs to be done by the PowerShell script. All right. So in our Windows machine, I have this PowerShell script here. Let's take a moment to look at this script, because I hate just to use random scripts of the internet and not knowing what's going on with them. So this script is going to query Active Directory. That's where this search is going to search Active Directory for disabled accounts, search Active Directory for logged accounts, search Active Directory for accounts with expired passwords, then get Active Directory users with a password that is set to never expire. Those are the statistics that I want. You can add more here if you want. Then we also want to get information about password resets. So in this case, we want to see password resets from the last 30 minutes I was just experimenting with 3000 minutes, so you want it to be 30 minutes. And then I have this one sent to that. And I also want to see when the password was last set for people. Then this part here is just formatting this data that I get from here and removing spaces, because Telegraph does not like data with spaces. Instead of spaces, it's going to put dashes if there is such things. Then I'll write host, and this write host is what I'm going to be grabbing. So this data that I get from writing host here looks like this. And then we grab that to Grafana. So that's our PowerShell script. Super simple, as you can see. You can add more things here. If you have other metrics that you want, just come in here and create them and follow the same format and syntax. Your data will be in Grafana. All right, so with this script, the next part, we need to install our Telegraph. First, you need to run this command, invoke web request https influxdb, just like that, and you output it to a file called telegraph.zip. That's the part that you need to do. If you get an error, just run this command here. I'll have all this stuff for you on my GitHub page. So on the link down below, I'm going to link my GitHub with the script, so you can copy it to your machine. And also I will also link my Telegraph configuration, the whole Telegraph configuration, so you don't get lost, so you can bring this in. So if you invoke web request to this location here, you're going to get the latest version of Telegraph. And if you're wondering where I got this information from, right here on the InfluxDB, if you go to this Telegraph version, for Windows it says to use, yes, Windows binaries, wget. You can use wget if you want, or you can use the PowerShell native command, which is invoke, and then this URL, and you need to output to a file, telegraph.zip. So when you do that, in your downloads folder, you have Telegraph. Then you need to extract, or then browse and go to your C and local C. Then here you want to go to program files and then select folder, extract. All right, now that if you come back in here, you see that you have a Telegraph 1. Whatever version that you are running. You want to right click, rename, and name this Telegraph. As you can see, I already have my Telegraph, so this won't work. I'll name this 01. Then in here, you have this Telegraph file. No. You have this Telegraph configuration file. You want to open this with Notepad++. That's the easiest one. So if you don't have Notepad++, download it from here. So download and install Notepad++, and in here, you want to set up this part here, the output part. And in the output, you want to put the name of the database, the user, and then the password. The password here, of course, we know our password, right? It's not going to be password matrix. It's going to be the password that we set up when we were setting up Telegraph back there, which was this one. So that's what you end up putting. All right, so with everything in here, once you do that, you want to go you want to leave everything the same way, then go all the way to the bottom. And right here, I want you to put my configuration that I'm going to share with you in GitHub. You want to add this. I want you to add this part right here, GitHub. So you copy this last part here. You see it points to, this part says input.exec. That what it means is run this command, run PowerShell against my AD script, the script that we made earlier, and then timeout at 60, interval 30 seconds. You probably want this to be 300 seconds, not 30 seconds. That's too often. 300 seconds is good. Then you want to copy this, and then let's go and go back to your actual Telegraph file all the way at the bottom and paste it. And when you paste it, it should look nice and easy like this. Then you can go ahead and save. That's all you need to do. So once you do that, the very important thing, save that PowerShell script somewhere. As you can see, mine is in the users administrator documents. In the documents folder, I created a folder called scripts, and I put my AD script ps.1. So if you go to my documents here, you see I have a folder called scripts. So just right click and create a new folder and name it whatever. You can name it scripts. Then get the script from my GitHub. Maybe you can download it however you do it. Then bring it here, and this script here, if I do an edit, it's the same exact script that I showed you in my PowerShell interface. So once you have it in the right location, make sure that this location matches what is in your Telegraph before you execute it. You are in business. According to this documentation called using Telegraph in Windows, so as you can see, you need to be able to think really fast here. This is the configuration. I'm not following everything here. You need to run this right here. But there's a catch, right? Watch me closely here. In my terminal, you need to cd to program files by typing cds, c files, Telegraph. Okay. So now that I'm in here, see I have a telegraph.conf in there. Let's go here. Another part that you need to really make sure that it is set up correctly. After that is the IP address. I think I skipped that part in the output section. Okay, we have the password and everything here. So the fields that you need to pay attention to in the outputs are the URL. Let's undo that. I'll share my script, my full Telegraph conf, so you don't need to guess here. This IP address needs to be our 192.168.38.29. Okay, that's the only part that I missed there. All right. So now that happened and you see it in here, we need to go back to our documentation here. It says to test service core, then the config directory, ours is C program file Telegraph. It ends right here. We don't have the conf that they have here, but this will do. So let's test. We just want to test to make sure that it works. And let's close that. All right, so mine is failing. It says it exists, but if you wanted to install yours, this is what you do. So you need to make sure you run that. I have these commands listed on my GitHub, so you don't have to worry about it. And once you do that, you can run netstat and start the service. Then when you start the service and everything works, Telegraph will be running in your Windows machine. And by the way, I need to be very careful here. People will be like, oh, how do I start the service? To start a service in Windows, you say service dash, you can say start dash service Telegraph. Mine is already started. If you want to see if it's running, you say get dash service Telegraph and see that it's running. That's how you see. Another way is you can right click down here, go to task manager, open services, then look for Telegraph here. Telegraph data collector, it's running. I just want to make sure I don't skip this. Someone will be asking, well, how do I start the service? That's how you start the service. If it's not running, right click here and start it. All right, now that that is out of the way, if your Telegraph is configured correctly, it's pointing to the right IP address and the password is the same and you're pointing to the right script, come back to Active Directory here, you will not have this. What you have is just this tab right here. You can say create add panel. If everything is working properly, you can leave this to the default because we only have one database. Select our measurement. You will see AD accounts. This is how I was able to generate these graphs. AD accounts, where then we can say host, because we only have one here, TPI. Okay, from these AD accounts, we can also, instead of saying host, we can remove that. Say where AD value is equals to accounts disabled. Let's change this graph type to a single statistics. So let's just choose a stat like that. Then we say, I don't want the mean. Field that we want is total. And I want this to be the last count. All right, so now it's giving us some number that doesn't make a lot of sense. So it's saying AD accounts where accounts disabled. It's saying there's half an account that is disabled. That doesn't make any sense, right? We need to come here and fix that. So display calculate, it's calculating the average by mean here. Right, it's behind me. Let's move this. Let me move myself to the top maybe. So right here, it's saying it's calculating the average. So we need to change that to the last value. We want the last value that my telegraph saw. So accounts disabled, last time it checked, there was 0. And this is over the last 6 hours. So I know this is a good graph. You can name it here, disabled accounts. And remember, this is as of the last 6 hours, or the last count. The last time this script ran, it saw 0 accounts. And then there's more other things that you can do here in the visualization. If you didn't want that, let's see if we can manipulate this display. If I say none, no graph, that's just a clean one. So I remove the graph here. Alignment, I can say center. Or I can put a background here if I wanted to. And you can put a color behind this background if you wanted. Then you can save and apply. That's disabled accounts. So I'm not going to save this because I already have mine. So let's discard. But let's go and I'll show you more things that you can do with this. I created this dashboard here. It's called AD Security. I'll actually export this dashboard, share it on the Grafana site right here. I'll share the link to it. So all you need to do is come and copy and import it. So it's super simple actually to import this graph. I'll share with you. All you need to do is just follow the link that I have. Find the number that you find from the link. That will be something like this. And then come back here and do this and say add. You can do an import, and then the number of my graph that is going to be in the comments here, and then need to import the graph for you if you want to see exactly what I have here. So once you import it, you should see something very similar to this. And then here's the final part. How do we use this? How do we read this? And this is just the beginning for me. But if you go to Active Directory right now and log out an account, this number would increase. If you go to Active Directory right now and create a new account and say that its password never expires, it will increase this number. In fact, why don't we test it out? Let's go and create a new account, set that it's disabled and its password never expire, and see what happens. So right now, remember 30006 and password last set. If we create a new account right now, it should also show as if we reset its password. So let's create an account in our Active Directory environment and test this thing out. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this account here in the task. I'm just creating a new one, admin 2. Backup 2, creating a password here. All right, so password never expires, account is disabled. Let's see if this one is going to work. Yes, admin 2 is set up and it's disabled. To speed up the process, let's go ahead and restart my telegraph here. This way I get my statistics right away. Now let's go back to our graph. And if all works well, these numbers should change. So let's refresh. There we go. So my disabled accounts are now at 3. Password never expired, went up by 1. This graph here just spiked, showing that we did a password reset on an account, and this number went up. It also shows us up here. So if any of these changes, this is going to be here. As an administrator, you can actually come in here and say, well, if logged out accounts increase, I want to take some action. So you can also set up some alerts in here to make sure that if some numbers in here increase, they can send you the alerts, or you can just send it to Slack or something like that. So that's what we have here. There is more you can do with this. This is just a beginning for us. So make sure to do your own stuff and share with me what you find for your graphs. So let me move myself here. Just notice that I was talking the whole time with covering here. So that's what I have here, guys. If you like this content, this was a little long, but I hope that being thorough helped you a lot. I showed you every single step that I have. And make sure to copy this graph from Grafana. If you don't know how to do that, see how I did the other one. And also use the code from GitHub. And if you like this content, please give me a thumbs up. And I will see you next time in our next video.